Hi, and welcome to Authority Marketing Live. I'm Melanie Hirschhorn. I am so excited because today I am back live. Last week it was all about turkey and pumpkin pie and no thinking about authority marketing. But today, oh yes, so much authority marketing. And here's this really cool thing. See, today my guest is really an authority on marketing your book and so much more. And she hails all the way from the other side of the planet from me. And I'm just so thrilled to have her here. And her name is Kelly Irving. And I'm going to just going to bring her right on. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you so much for being here
Oh,
today.
it's a pleasure to be here. It's always nice to chat to you, Melanie.
Yeah, thank you
Always.
so much. It's funny, because I feel like I know you and we really just we connected on LinkedIn and we didn't know anybody in common and I've never been to, well, pretty much your side of the planet. Um so I just social media. There are just such great things about it sometimes.
That's right, there is. Yeah, it's like one of those things, isn't it? It's like you know someone, except you don't really know someone.
And it's true. There, in the heat of the pandemic, there were people that I did not meet who are practically my neighbors, but I only ever met them on Zoom.
Yeah,
So,
well, here's a fun fact for you, actually. I've worked with so many authors. I actually often don't meet them until maybe like 12 months later, maybe a year later. So I do all of my work, in this kind of fashion. And it's such a close, intimate process. And it feels like, you know this person so well, you get to know their work so well, you create a really great friendship. And then 12 months down the track, I meet them in person and they hand me my book and I'm like, so we've never actually met in person. Did you know that? I'm like, oh.
funny how that happens, but that's kind of how things are these days. And the beauty is that somebody here in the United States can be like, I really want to work with somebody who really knows what they're doing. And I haven't found anybody on my neck of the woods, but the world is your oyster, right?
Yeah, totally. It's a good case in point actually, because I've got a few US clients and yeah, one of them, Murdy, he's always talking about, I couldn't find the right book coach in America, so I went to Australia. So there you go.
Only with his computer, though. He's physically still in the United
Yeah,
States,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's funny. So now you and I were just before we went on live, we were talking about how this is a really busy time of year for you. And
Very.
and and when we talked a couple weeks ago, I was like, but why? So
Yeah.
why don't I think it's interesting to talk about why this is a very busy time of year for not only book coaches or for publishing, but for the people writing the books too. So tell me why.
Yeah, well, I think there's two things that happen. So, the first thing is people have been writing, and then it starts getting to the end of the year, and they realize, oh my god, I'm still not where I want to be or where I should be. I've missed my deadline. I haven't done this, blah blah blah, and they start getting really panicky about that thing. So you've got that, and the other confluence to that is the fact that a lot of people want to write a book next year. And so
Mm.
this is prime time in terms of, the time. November is really, for a lot of people, the time where they set their agenda. They start thinking about what are the projects that I want to do next year and all of that type of stuff. And so a book is often front and center, the thing in their mind that they start thinking about for next year. So you've kind of got these two worlds kind of colliding at the same point, hence why it ends up being quite busy for me.
Yeah, but that's a good thing. It's like a good problem to have.
Oh, yeah, it's a good problem to have for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that, where the book fits in. And what kind of authors do you primarily work with?
Yeah. So my authors tend to be, look, you would label them as a speaker, a coach. They might use the term thought leader. They might be a keynote speaker, that type of thing. I kind of tend to think of them beyond the label, because it sort of doesn't really matter what you call yourself. It just means that you've got knowledge or expertise in a certain kind of field. And so what you're doing is you're writing a book to kind of pull that knowledge, into a resource that you're going to use to help you leverage your business in some way, shape, or form. So if you would think about like the categories of books, so I work only on nonfiction books, and they tend to be either, a business book, a self-development book, or something which I like to label. I've kind of got a new category, which I call stealth help, because I think
What is
in
that
the
again?
past, stealth help,
How do you spell that?
STEALTH. So
Oh,
unknown
stealth.
help. Yeah.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
this like bum glue? Because I'm still laughing about bum glue. Okay, so you guys, okay. Let me say something about that. Sorry, I'm interrupting your like important thought here to bring you a story about bum glue, which I did
New
not
spell.
know. Did not know what that was until I was talking to Kelly, and then she said something, and I had to make her stop and spell that for me as well. And it turns out that when you are supposed to stick in your chair, you need bum glue to keep you there. And my children and I have been laughing about it for weeks. So
It's been coming up in my conversations as well.
only people are probably like, "Oh, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about," right?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's your classic case of Americans and Australian and the disjoint.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, we use that
I
all the time.
and like I said then, I will say it again, I think you need to market it and, give it to your clients. They can have a free bottle of bum glue to keep them glued to their computer
Hell
as
yeah,
they
big bum glue.
yes.
There you
So
go.
now tell us about Stealth Help
Yeah, well,
book.
I think stealth help kind of has taken over self help. So when we think of the category of book for self-help, it
Mhm.
turns a lot of people off these days. They actually don't want to write a book and then be put in the self-help kind of
Mm.
category. Whereas I think that there's a bit of a trend in the stealth help, which is that it's really uncovering your personal story and your motivations. And, a lot of people have, got a lot of experience and they've got something to share. And you're pooling that in a way that's going to be helpful to another person. And people tend to resonate with the stealth help a bit more because they feel like they're not being pushy, or they're not giving
Yeah.
people the 7 steps to fulfillment and happiness for life, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, I think that label tends to help people
Yeah.
in terms of thinking about, oh, yeah, okay, it's just my story and I'm sharing it in a way that's going to be helpful for somebody else, but
Mm.
not in an obvious way that's going to turn them off.
Right, and not in that, I did it, so now you have to kind of the way
Yeah.
almost like that bro marketing is where it's like, if you don't do this, you're just gonna die.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be awful. Or you can do exactly what I do and then lie around on Lamborghinis all day. Or
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. The dip. So you call it the dip, where it's like, oh, I used to be this really high, successful flying career person, and I had this, and I lived the life, and then something happened, and like everything collapsed, and I lost my wife, and my marriage, and my children, and blah 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 blah.
And
And
both
then
arms and
I
then
did
yeah.
this, and then I did this, and here's the 7 steps that I followed, and you can do that too.
Yeah, that's old. It's been
Yeah.
done and
Good old.
it's inauthentic.
Yeah, and actually that's a really good word because I think for me that's why people write these types of books. So I mean there's a really big difference obviously in a variety of quality between books. And we all know those books that you've been given, especially if they've been self-published, and you kind of look at them and you're like, oh yeah, awesome, and then it sort of goes and you never ever look at it again. So really and this, and you'll understand this because this is about thinking about it from a marketing point of view. It's really about producing great work, and quality is really important to that. Like it's integral to it. And it's, quality work is why we have them up here on our bookshelves and they stick around forever.
Yeah.
And you can only market from stuff when you've got good work there to market.
Well, I mean, there's a term in the news business called polishing a turd. Um, which I had to do many a time when I'd be writing an article about something that was just so terribly boring.
Yeah.
And I would say to my news director, "Who cares? Why do we care?" He's like, "I know, just polish the turd."
Yeah.
But that said, the news story wasn't about me,
Yeah.
right? This is your this is your work as an author. This is your baby. Why wouldn't you want to make it the best it could possibly be? Stand in your integrity and have it be a true reflection of who you are.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
would you want to just like slap something together and call it a day?
Yeah.
I'm
Well, I mean, it is a good question. Why would you want to do that? Because, people still do that.
well,
And
yeah.
I think, time is probably a big factor in that. So, a book is quite a complex project. There's a writing side of it, but then you've got to do all these other steps to actually get it into people's hands as well. So it is hard work. It's like anything of value. It's going to take hard work and struggle to get over it and do it. So it's actually not for the faint-hearted, but I think that there's a lot of fast hacks and stuff like that out there because, like you were saying at the start, in terms of the people that I work with, they're busy people, they're doing other stuff. They don't have the benefit of taking a 2-month author sabbatical to sit under a palm tree and write a book. Like, that's not a reality.
But you can still write a book quickly, but write it well.
Exactly. But I think a lot of people go at it the wrong way round. So they'll come and they'll say, I've been blogging for 2 years, so I'll just take 20 of my best blog posts and I'll put those all together and create a book from it. And it's kind of like, yeah, okay, well, you're going to get a book out of it because you'll have a cover and it will all come together. But basically, it's a book of blog posts.
Yes.
So there's no overarching message. There's no overarching theme. They're disjointed ideas and thoughts. And so that's not really the way to do it. It's sort of like you've got to do it the opposite way around. So with that, it's like, okay, I've got this small pieces of work and I'll just put them together to make the big piece. But if you flip it and do the big body of work first, then what you're going to find is that you've got all these smaller pieces of work. This is where your mastery comes in because you've got all this other content you can leverage absolutely everywhere based on that big body of work. So it's a bit of a mindset shift.
Absolutely. And I love how you just said that because I think of Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City. Did you watch Sex and the City?
Yeah.
Most people do, but I never want to assume. So she wrote a column in that newspaper. And then one day they turned every column into a book.
Yeah.
And was it disjointed? I'm sure. But all of a sudden she was a published author. And I feel like that gave people that kind of feeling like, oh, well, if you wrote a bunch of blogs, well, you could just, put them together and call it a book. And you're right. It's more like a binder filled with things you wrote.
Yeah. It's a good. So I find this interesting because I think there's a couple of different points in here. And the first one is there's nothing wrong with blogging. And actually blogging is actually a really good method of testing out your content on your audience.
Absolutely. And for
Awesome.
SEO purposes as well. It's
totally. And also, so in what terms you've just said there, what you're actually doing is building your audience while you're writing. So they're already getting engaged into what you're creating. The second thing is, I use an example a lot. So I talk about Mark Manson's Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck because everybody loves this book in Australia. It's always selling like hotcakes, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, so let's break it down a bit. Because what he did was he had a solid, like he'd been blogging for years. And this book is actually based on one of his most popular blogs, which is really common, right? It's just kind of like the Carrie Bradshaw thing in a way. You've already got an audience. You've been testing that content. You see what resonates, and then you build a book around that central idea because you've done that body of work. So all you're really doing is delivering already to the platform that you have on what they've said that they want. And so that's, I think, is really a critical thing to think about. And I use that book example a lot because, for a lot of us, we might not have been blogging for as long as, 10 years, 12 years. So you can't expect the same results. And I also think, as popular as that book is, and there's some great, ideas and stuff, is it? When you have a conversation with someone, you're like, okay, tell me your top 3 takeaways from that book.
Mm-hmm.
What would they be? And people are actually like, oh, well, it's just to like care less about life, not worry about things. Yeah, what else? It's really hard to like sum up anything else. It's really just one central message throughout that whole book.
So interesting.
And so I think, that's a really important thing for people to get in terms of that distinction, because there's actually not a lot to that book. There's not a whole big body of work to it.
Right.
It's one central idea and message over and over and over again.
Just said differently. And there's no actionable tips then?
Not really. It's really like, just stop caring. Don't care so much about what people think about you. Don't care so much. Just do stuff. That's really
okay. I will. I don't know.
So it's an interesting example because people kind of aspire to that, especially over here. Like people aspire to that book quite a lot. It's just understanding some of the things that have gone into it, and I think definitely in terms of that platform, is really critically important, because he really built that platform over a period of years, and then he delivered what his audience wanted to hear from him.
And that's right. And a lot of times when I work with clients, we're doing it from the other way around. They've written the book and they're like, I don't have an audience, help. Yeah. And so it's building that up. But, it's great to be able to do it in the other way.
Yeah. You just got to do it, and do it a lot, and do it more, and do it consistently.
And get your time machine and go back 10 years and start blogging and then come back.
Basically,
If only. So how can people work with you if they want to, they really want to get their brain and butt glued and all that stuff in gear and ready to go for 2022?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because 2022, if you're thinking about writing a book, if it's something that you want to do, then so there's a couple of things that I would suggest. So the first thing is I'm running a workshop. So it'll be Thursday the 2nd, my time. So what will it be? Wednesday the 1st in the US. So I run a workshop where I get really interactive with people, help you through 5 strategies that you can do to set yourself up for success, and actually understand what some of the foundational aspects and elements are before you launch into writing. That's really important. So anybody that resonates with, I'd love to invite to come along. I'll put the link down below or something. It's kellyirving.com/workshop. And the other thing is, because we didn't really talk about this, but one of the stuck points is for people who really want to write next year, the biggest obstacle is, but I don't know which idea I should write, or I don't know if my idea is good enough. And so there's a really simple little tool that I have developed that I use with all my authors to actually show you that you've already got that idea in your head. You just need that bum glue to actually do it. So, so it's called the book canvas. kellyirving.com/canvas. Again, it's free. You can fill it out in 15 minutes. You'll actually have your own idea validated for you. So we'll actually show you that you've got a lot more in your head than you actually think, and that it's actually a lot easier to work with something when it's on the page. So that's what it's going to help you do, is articulate what that idea is on the page. So that's 2 really good steps to set yourself up for actually doing the work next year.
Yay. Well, what are your plans for 2022? Do you have anything big, exciting in the works, or is it all secret?
Good question, actually. Yeah, I'm making some improvements. So I run a group coaching program called the Expert Author Academy. So there's lots of good stuff that's going into that next year, and a lot of improvements that I'm making for that. So you'll have to stay tuned for those announcements. But a key focus for me is always making sure that I've got time off as well. Like, so, I'm a big surfer over here in Australia now. So having perspective and doing work out of, sitting at your laptop is really important for me. So, so there's a few things in the pipeline just to make sure that I've got time off as well.
That's right, because it's summertime.
It's summertime. That's right.
All right. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been
Thanks,
awesome.
Melanie.
And we're going to put all the information in the comments so that you will be able to see what Kelly is up to. So, Kelly, thank you so much.
Thanks, Melanie. Always happy to answer anybody's questions if they've got, oh my God, I don't know how to do this or where should I start, etc. So just reach out.
Thank you. And so, one more cool thing I could tell you guys about is that on the 14th of December, I'm going to be holding a free book marketing workshop. It's called the All That Glitters Workshop. And we're going to be talking about how to plan a month's worth of content in just 1 hour. And you can sign up for that. Again, it's a free workshop, December 14th, and you can get all the info at allthatglittersworkshop.com. Thanks so much for watching today. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.